Kewaunee Lapseritis has been having contact experiences with Sasquatch as early as 1956, when as a 12-year-old he began to develop an interest in the Sasquatch and began writing to various researchers and people about them. In 1979, he had his first conscious experiences with Sasquatch in terms of communications, and then later in 1983 he had physical contacts with the Sasquatch. He's taken photographs of Sasquatch. He's been researching and writing books about Sasquatch and friendly extraterrestrials for over 44 years.
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, I want to welcome you, Kewaunee, to Exopolitics Today. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I think you have a lot of experience on the Sasquatch.
Yes.
So why don't you just begin when you first began having experiences and what attracted you to the Sasquatch information?
Well, it was reading an article in a magazine at a young age that made sense to me, and I got overwhelmed with interest and started to write to different universities at that time, back in the 1950s, and then writing to Canada, to different places where they were having experiences to try to gather more information. And I continued to do this over the years, and even in 1968, I had been into the Himalayas to investigate the Yeti.
So you were interested in Sasquatch at a very young age, as a 12-year-old. So it was in 1979 that you had your first experiences or telepathic communications with them. So you want to explain what happened in 1979 that changed things for you?
Yes, I was working for a First Nations agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Native Americans invited me to some property. They were going to, one of the Indians had purchased, and they were going to have a ceremony, and they asked me to join them. And when I did, I went off on my own while they were gathered. There was just a small group looking to a medicine man, and just started wandering around the property. And all of a sudden, this voice said, this is the Sasquatch, man. I am watching you, and I've been watching you for many years now, longer than you know or understand right now. And I thought, what is this about? What? I'm looking around. I didn't see anything. And so I, at the edge of the woods, and I walked into the field and thought, how odd that is. And then he repeated himself again. And I looked around and didn't see anything. And a more sophisticated voice intervened and said, I am a star person, and I too have been watching you for many years. You know or understand right now. And I thought to myself, I looked all over, and I looked up in the sky and so on. I thought, what's going on here? I mean, it just started lately. And finally, they said, we right now, I said to myself, I wonder where they are. I wonder where this guy is. And he said, right now, I'm in a UFO, as you people call it, and they were in another dimension. And all this, of course, was startled me. So I said, this didn't happen, I walked over to where there were 6 Native Americans there sitting around talking, and I kind of inched in with them. And the Sasquatch said, I am watching you. And I looked around, and no one seemed to notice any. apparently they weren't hearing anything, just me. And then one of the Indians said, "Hey, you should put your sweat lodge over there." And the head of house said, "Oh, no, not over there." And then the up and said, "Yes, that is an excellent place to have a, to set this up." And all of a sudden, the head of house said, "No, the star people have been landing their spaceships there, and I don't want to disrupt their activity." And this, I mean, was really overwhelming to me at the time. It's what I never expected. And I stood up and went house. And I thought, I hope I'm not insulting them or offending any. But by the time I got back, I sat at a table outside of this old farmhouse there in Wisconsin, and people were leaving, and I was still sitting there in a daze. And the head of house said, "I was watching you. You were hugging my guard dog and petting him, and my best friend can't get near that dog." And I thought, what did I do? I wonder. And then he said, "And Sasquatch is also attracted to you," and walked away. And that was startling to me. And so I said, "Well, I'm never going to tell anyone. Like a fool, I can't prove anything. I'm a social scientist, can't prove anything." So 2 days later at night, I still remember 2:45 in the morning, a voice said, "Wake up, my friend, we are here." I was facing the wall, and when I opened my eyes, I could feel an energy behind me. And I thought, oh no, a burglar broke in. And this was in Milwaukee, in the city, in an apartment. And I thought there'd be a gun on me, and I rolled over. But there standing were two Sasquatch, but I knew them. And they slowly, the big one floated through the floor until his face was equal to mine, about no more than 3 feet away, and started talking. And I thought, holy gee, they're interdimensional here, apparently. And for 2 months, they would come and visit me at night, sometimes different ones. And I said, "Oh, you're back." You know, I could start to recognize them, that they were all different. And one of the times, it was a female, and she brought along a young one who was about 4 feet tall, and he stayed away from me, way to the foot of the bed, and they were kind of floating around. And I thought, well, I'm the only one that knows that, but I'm still never going to tell anyone. And then about a week later, a friend visited me, and we were talking, and he said, "Hey," he said, "there's a monkey standing behind you." And I looked around. I thought, what's he talking about? He said, what do you mean? He said, "Well, I don't know quite what it is, but," he says, "it's feet tall, and he's been watching you." And that's when I told him, I said, well, I had this experience, and explained to him all about it. And he said, "They're Sasquatch." And so more, as time went on, more people started to have experiences who would rub shoulders with me, as long as they were not violent people. And I don't hang out with violent people. So ready, and we're not afraid to experience this. And later, I had and he was seeing them come and go. And it's been that way now, all these years, for, I think it's 44 years or something. That I asked them, I said, "How long have you been watching me?" And this really startled me. He said, "We were there at the birth." I said, "At the moment of my birth?" And he said, "Yes, you have a mission here, and you're doing it." And I thought, and it is eventually, as they told me, spoon-fed me for a while, because I was so startled, that is to get out. that there are people, are not animals, that they are connected to friendly star people. Because when people, oh, the ET's this or the ET's that, or oh, they're bad or good or whatever it is, and I say, well, which one are you mentioning? What are you talking about? There's many different ones, and there's groups that gather together that are nonviolent, more spiritually oriented, and there's very few, but probably two, possibly three others. One could even label evil, and that are here. And they told me, they says they've been here forever. They've been here for millions of years. They just didn't. They've been here in the inner earth, and the Sasquatch told me there's in the ocean and in deep water lakes, and I found them also in extinct volcanoes. There's cities, and I know where there's two different ones. So I don't try to do anything other than to communicate with them, and if they don't feel like it at the time, that's fine. There's demands. I don't go advertising this because it's kind of a personal thing. However, they want me to share this information, which I have with my two books, the Psychic Squatch and the UFO Connection, and the Sasquatch Dimensional Connection, because that's the truth. It kind of alerts people, hey, there's something going on in this book, and it's the truth that matter. And a lot of people question me on it, and some of the more conservative mainstream researchers have been upset with me, saying that I shouldn't be talking about stuff, that it's woo-woo stuff. Well, guess what? It's really this research is a combination of anthropology and quantum physics, because these evolved that they have the ability to even dematerialize. I've seen them twice dematerialize right in front of me. So they've done so much for me, and they've healed me at times. They've saved my life at times. They've been wonderful. I mean, just wonderful. And so it is a mirror, though. Go after them with a gun, then you aggression back, because they're not going to just sit there. They've been shot at, wounded, and all that for years, and they're fed up with it. And they said, we love the humans, but they've got to grow up. They view most of the researchers as children, they told me, because they don't get it. They're still trying to get a body when there's no need. There's so much evidence there anyway. So what's the next step? Communication. Now, when I did an ethnographic study living amongst the Kewaunee Indians of Upper Amazonia in conjunction with the Colombian Institute of Anthropology in Bogota in 1973, I went in with gifts. This was deep in the Amazon. I went in with gifts of hooks, 100 tests nylon line, a machete, and several things like that. And I didn't go in with a gun threatening them. It's you wouldn't get anywhere that way, and it's in fact it's dangerous. So I have no feeling of violence towards anybody. So when I went in, I stayed friendly and everything, and they enjoyed having me there because I was always friendly. It's the same Sasquatch people, but very, very few, maybe 1% of the researchers have figured some of this stuff out by reading my books, and one or two go in in a friendly manner, and it's a mirror in the back. So people say, oh, they chased me out. Oh, they threw rocks at me. I said, what were you doing? Well, we were sitting around the fire drinking. We had a pistol with us that we were target shooting previously. Well, this is a threat. They're in their space, Sasquatch space, so they drive people away. So that's what they do. And one man in Oregon told me the Sasquatch attacked me. And I thought, sorry, they don't do that. I said, well, what happened? I said, oh, he attacked me. I was, still upset. I said, well, did he tear your arms off, legs? What did he do? I was being a bit facetious. Oh, no. And I said, please tell me this. And he says, I have a motorcycle. I rented this place in the country, and I was in the garage with a big door open, and a shadow came over me, and when he looked, there was a Sasquatch peeking in, watching him fix his motorcycle. And this happened in a row. And so one evening in the summer, when it was still light out, he went for a hike on one of the trails in back of his house, and there was a Sasquatch stepped out onto the trail. He says, that's when it attacked me. I said, did it have a club, or was it growling or showing its teeth? What was it doing? It was walking towards me. It was attacking me. Oh, wait a minute. Walking towards you isn't attacking anything or anybody. It's being friendly. So what? He said. I said, well, did you stick around to wait to interact with him? He said, no, I ran. Attack me. I said, walking towards you is not an attack. So these people, they're overwhelmed them. But if you go out to try to interact with them, guns, no cameras, do not go out in groups, just by yourself, and no fear, absolutely no fear. So the Sasquatch have told me people must learn to walk in unconditional love and trust. And when they do, experiences. This year alone, there's 4 people that have had experience. I trained them to do this. And one man in Washington
State. Before we go on, I just want to, before we go on talking about more experiences, that we maybe go over some of the photos that you sent me, because people will be very interested in any evidence that you have that Sasquatch are real, that this is just more than just a tall story, that there's actual physical evidence that you've put together. And you sent me some photos showing pictures, evidence of the Sasquatch that you have physically interacted with. So you want to tell us about some of these pictures that you sent me for that one, with the feet.
I will. My point just before this was to say that these people are having telepathic experiences with a psychic Sasquatch, and right away, because they have an open heart, and there's lots of them out there now doing this. This here was taken in Texas, right outside of Paris, Texas. The people there had contacted me. They had read my book and invited me down, and I had all kinds of experiences every single day there. I set up a tent and so on, and was having experiences. So this is from Texas. Okay,
so we have another one. Why don't you? Yep, there, that one there. Yeah, tell us about that.
Now this is from Biloxi, Texas. I got this out of a book. If you see to your right of this large footprint, there's a human footprint. Human foot there, and if you see in the middle, there's a line drawn across. They sawed that open once they cut this out of limestone in the Biloxi River beside there, and there were dinosaur tracks beside these tracks. And so the scientists at the university would not come down to look at this. They said it's just fake. Well, they're fake scientists because they're not investigating something that needs investigating. And when this was cut open, they could see that it was not chiseled or faked or anything like that. And I asked the Sasquatch, I said, this is 65 million year old track. I says, does this have anything to do with you? And they said, yes, that's from our people. He said, we were here that long in a few million years before that. He says, but the Sasquatch killed some of our people because there were all kinds of different animals out there. So this is from, and it's an incredible story if anyone looks that up on Biloxi, Texas. It's wonderful, and it's proof if people just looked at it.
Right. Now, you mentioned that this image comes from at least 65 million years ago. And I know in your books, you talk about the Sasquatch as a species predating Homo sapiens on Earth, that Homo sapiens are kind of like a late development, that the Sasquatch were here earlier, and then extraterrestrials came along and they developed humans, or introduced humans as a species on the Earth after the Sasquatch had been here for many millions of years.
Well, the Sasquatch said that this is their words, they were bioengineered by friendly ETs. And later, we were also bioengineered, the human race was. And so when you get these different hominids that were out there, this is Neanderthal included, these were genetically engineered, at least they told me that, by friendly ETs to see which species could survive and so on. And they dropped them off and started a race. And so apparently it's true. I can't prove that other than what they're telling me. And from what I gather, they've never really lied. They've been straightforward. So, and that track, incidentally, was 24 inches long.
When the friendly ETs created the Sasquatch, are we talking about another group of friendly ETs creating Homo sapiens, or are we talking the same group?
I don't know. I assume it was the same group, but I don't know.
Because people talk about the Sumerian cuneiform texts describing the Anunnaki as creating Homo sapiens. So the question is, did the Anunnaki also create Sasquatch, or did the Sasquatch predate the Anunnaki arrival?
Well, the Sasquatch predated them. There is that seems like a conflict right there, but again, they've been creating different hominids, apparently, from what the Sasquatch said, and that the Anunnaki also did. Now, whether they were the same ones, I don't know. That it's some people think, well, that I sit down every morning over coffee and interrogate the Sasquatch people to quickly clear things up, but they spoon feed people. They're not just getting all this information at once. So sometimes it can be a little confusing, and some of this does need more clarification.
Okay, that's very helpful because I have heard that the Anunnaki interfered with or genetically modified hominids on Earth that actually were originally altered by other friendly extraterrestrials, even before the Anunnaki. So that's that would fit in with what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Now we have some images. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, we have some images of the Sasquatch that appear to be popping into our reality, and you sent us those. So you want to tell us about that image there?
Yes, this was taken in Idaho. Who was hiking, and she had her camera and came out of the woods, and there was a Sasquatch crossing a stream. And she quickly pulled up the camera and took it, but the Sasquatch realized she was there and dematerialized. But this is probably the rarest photo you could ever get to that is catching it in midstream and in mid interdimension. So again, this is a rare photo, and the outline of being walking across. I showed this to a researcher that's been researching for years, and he just says, and that's your camera. The person's camera broke. It's just, that's nothing. This is nothing. Well, researchers are extremely, and they want a body, and there's all this other evidence that they, shame on them, that they edit out. And that's subjective data collecting. Doesn't have anything to do with science. Science, I presented this information and in my books and been criticized for, I followed the scientific paradigm, the model as far as I could, and continued by researching because I knew everything that I was doing was real. They kept feeding me information, talking to me, and so on. So this is just one aspect of our.
And I think it's worth just emphasizing here that you actually were trained as an anthropologist. You have a master's degree in science, and that you taught at a community college. So do you want to just talk about your scientific credentials and how you've been applying that to this Sasquatch research?
Yes, I taught anthropology at North Adams State College in Massachusetts for a year before moving out to Wisconsin. I also did an ethnographic study, as I mentioned earlier, among the Kewaunee Indians of Upper Amazonia, and presented a paper on that. So I'm also a psychologist and hypnotherapist. I've done that for many, many years as well, and a health consultant. So these things, even some of the information on healing, natural healing that the Sasquatch shared with me, and even ETs came and explained different herbs and things to me. So this is things I never expected and I had to struggle with. And like I said, for a while, I was feeling uncomfortable presenting this information publicly. Not anymore. Either you get it or you don't. And the proof, wait a minute, the other researchers, the experts, what do they got to offer? They're still stuck. They're still stuck and still chasing the Sasquatch. They're still going out sometimes on four-wheelers and snowmobiles and things that don't make any sense, making noise in the forest and looking for Sasquatch. You don't chase, come to you. You don't stalk them. They come to you, but you have to be worthy of that, clearing yourself. One time I was upset about something, I can't quite remember at point, and I went to Sasquatch and I telepathed. I waited and I did this for a couple of days. And I said, what's going on? They didn't say anything. They didn't get back. Finally, after a couple of weeks, they got back, and I asked them why they didn't initially, like they normally would. And their answer was, you were upset. He says, don't ever come to us with anger in your heart. Come to us only with unconditional love, open heart, but you have to let go of any negative emotions, and then we come to you. So all these things, little here, little there, I was learning about them, how they think and their culture. They have a tendency, of course, they're not really experts, but they have a tendency to superimpose our culture and thinking on them. Some of the apes of North America, they told me they have nothing to do with the anthropoid apes. They have nothing to do with a branch of them at all. Those animals were evolved here. The Sasquatch did not. Some of the researchers also say, oh, Gigantopithecus, see, there's the proof. And the Sasquatch brought that up too. He says, well, that was just another animal to do with us. So all the experts are quite confused, and they're stuck there, and they'll continue to be stuck. They won't get pictures. They won't get a body. Many of them say that they carry guns, but they secretly do. Why? Because they want the ultimate body. They want fame and fortune and that kind of thing. And the Sasquatch said they're not going to have it. They're not going to, they stay away from those people.
Well, you have a few more photos of the Sasquatch that you have supplied. So I want to look at one of these other photos of the Sasquatch that appear to be kind of like, you want to tell us about this particular picture?
Yes, this is in the Santa de Crista Mountains in Colorado. A person took this and shared it with me. And the thing is the person want his name out, anything to do with this, or his name or anything attached to this photograph. Now, this is not Sasquatch. This is an ancient one. These are thin. Other veteran researchers don't have a clue. The ancient ones have a human face. They have a round head like us, and they have their arms in proportion to their body like us. And they told me that some of their DNA was used to create us. Now, watch people, they're people. Don't, just because they look like an animal, it doesn't mean they're not a people. They are. The Sasquatch people have a sagittal crest or a peaked head. They have a ape-like face, even though don't have anything to do with the apes. Their arms are down to their knees, which is entirely different than the ancient ones. And so this is an ancient one here. Looks like he has a beard, a round head, and his arms are in proportion to his body like us. So he said camera that had, if he pushed the button and kept it going, he would have gotten Sasquatch that were running by. He said a small one went by that was about 6 foot tall. He said this one was 7.5 to 8 feet tall. And the one immediately after this was about 10 to 11 feet tall. And they were jogging into this space, and he thought he just took this one, and when he lowered his camera, again, the third one ran by. So this is what I'm sharing, and it's wonderful. It's a great photo.
So with the ancient ones, so they were another species that seemed to be a kind of hybrid of Sasquatch and human DNA. So the same friendly extraterrestrials prior to the Anunnaki arrival created the Sasquatch, the ancient ones, and an early primitive humanoid and Neanderthals prior to the Anunnaki arriving. Is that the sequence?
Yes, something of that nature. Yes, that makes sense. You referred to the ancient ones as a hybrid. I don't know that. It's just that they were created and bioengineered. Again, they like that word, and that's all I know. But I've interacted with both of them, and they do ongoing. And they told me that if you reject us, we're still going to be watching over you and still be here. Of course, I don't reject them, but again, they want to give me guidance, and they keep saying, "Oh, you have a spiritual mission," and So, basically, if a researcher says that they're animals or monsters, you'll know that that particular researcher is incredible, because they don't know what they're talking about. This is my opinion, that they are actually wrong information to the public and to other people when they go out and hunt Sasquatch. So there's a bunch of kind of redneck that think they're going to get him because of technology, and this is murder. This is murder, and appalling to me. It's disgusting, and they need to wake up, grow up emotionally and spiritually. What does spiritually mean? Having respect for all living things. That's all it is. It doesn't have anything to do with religion, even though some religions have very spiritual people with them, like Buddhists and so on. So that difference, and if they can only change, but so many of them are fearful, they've had bad experiences, and but people shoot at them, and they carry guns and stuff, and they'll never solve the problem. They're just driving them away.
Now, you've mentioned in your books that the ancient ones can actually breed with humans, and that they can actually have offspring. So the ancient ones can breed with humans, but not the Sasquatch. We're just talking the ancient ones. Is that correct?
The Sasquatch can too. Also, because they're human. They can too. Yes, that's what they said. So, and also, I asked a ancient one, a woman who calls herself Loti, and I've had a lot of interaction with her, and I did a lot of love in my heart for her for being so kind to me. And she said that at times, though it's rare, the Sasquatch may fall in love with a ancient one and vice versa, and then they hook up and they can have children. They can have offspring. So why? Again, even though the Sasquatch like animals to people and look so different and scary, they are I mean, a lot of this is a carryover from Europe, that other races are subhuman. The American Indians, the Afro-American people, turning them into slaves, and then the Chinese that came over to work. They looked down upon racially and everything. So there's a lot of racial in this research from people, because they're not treating the Sasquatch fairly. And you don't go with a gun. You go by yourself, and you let them know that you want to interact. They don't like curiosity seekers, they told me, but they'll help anyone who is spiritually oriented and wants to, if they're helping other people and sharing their gifts in this life to other people. And that's what they look for: people with compassion, people who are empathetic, people who are really human and not animals. The only monsters I know are those that are trying to kill the Sasquatch and the ancient ones. They're the monsters.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we have another couple of images of Sasquatch appearing to come into our reality. That one there. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. Again, this is from Texas. The people who had contacted me, some film that they set up, and the Sasquatch said, "Could you please take down your trail cams?" Because they had several up. And this just see the sagittal crest, and it's coming on. If you see the lines behind it, it's kind of white and then dark white, and those are it's a garden just coming out of the garden with a of course you can't see it here because it's the best that I could do, with an ear of corn in its mouth, and it's stepping over a barbed wire fence. I stood beside that, and I couldn't do it. A man 6.5 feet would get hung up on that fence, and he easily, this looks about 7 foot or a little over 7 feet tall, just easily stepped over that barbed wire fence. So they were both Sasquatch and ancient ones interacting there at the edge of this property, and they would leave food for them, they would leave gifts for them, and I started doing, not to lure them in, it has nothing to do with that, but just giving gifts, food, and stuff, and they appreciated that, and So why? Because they knew that I wasn't trying to exploit them, where other researchers, and that's their main deal, the ego and exploitation and get famous. And of course, that's a low energy to them, because they said everything is based on vibrational frequencies. And the people who are empathetic, who have compassion, who care about other people, I've been a healer for over 45 years, are those that have a higher vibrational frequency. Those who are angry, aggressive, fearful, have a low vibrational frequency, and they can pick up on that easily, because these researchers have no idea of how super psychic these beings are, these forest people are, and that they're a true people. But again, if you attack them, you might lose your life, or they've destroyed people's property and stuff out of anger because they wounded them. They came back and, maybe killed some dogs, killed rabbits, and things like that. That one Sasquatch. Now, the rest of them may not have wanted to do that, but people shot at it, wounded it even. So they get mad. They have a right to stand up for themselves. And then people say, oh, see, look, these beings are monstrous. Look what they did to my dog. Well, sick your dog on them and you might get it killed. So, you have to look from the standpoint of the forest people and not superimpose our cultural values and our own problems, our emotional problems onto them, and think that's, if you're aggressive, you might get aggressive back. If you're kind and everything, that's what you're going to get in return.
So is those qualities of empathy and peacefulness kind of like universal among the Sasquatch? Because I know native peoples, I mean, you can have small tribes that go to war against each other. So Sasquatch also in harmony with nature, like, say, native indigenous peoples. But I mean, are there stories like that? Have the Sasquatch ever had a history of like wars or battle between different groups of Sasquatch, or have they always been this kind of fraternal, peaceful species?
No, you're correct. Somehow history. And when my first book came out, they told me that several Sasquatch left and went off on their own, a group that were angry at their own people because I've revealed too much. And they were annoyed with me. I asked them, how much of this should I reveal? And they said, tell the truth. That was the answer that they will always give back to me. So keep in mind, they refer to themselves as the Sasquatchy Nation, and that they have a council of elders that are wise. They're very wise people. They know us better than we know ourselves, because they've been watching us through our own development, culture development, which is our history is nothing but violence. So yes, there are a few that are angry towards us. There were people who tried to, this is years ago, I mean, could have been 100 or 200 years ago, that were shooting at them, and they were killed and later eaten. And the Sasquatch do not agree, and they've killed some of their own people because they were a danger to humans. They told me this, and they explained this, that they did. They destroyed some of their own people because they were angry. And that isn't, as a whole, that isn't who we don't want to anybody. And they talk of karma, the importance of watching and monitoring your own thoughts and your behavior. They told me twice about this and brought it up and explained this to me. And that also one ET who came to me, and I've seen 7 different races of these different beings that have come to me. And I feel very fortunate that this has happened. But all I can tell is just relate it to people and to the public to educate them. Yes, again, same with ETs. There's a couple of races, 2 or 3 races that are not good towards even humans. But the rest of them, ones I've seen that interact with the Sasquatch, and that when they have meetings on spaceships and stuff, they pick up the Sasquatch, the different ones, the leaders, the chiefs, and they are taken to the mothership, and then they have this meeting from time to time of what's happening on Earth all over, and why this is happening, and that, and what to it, and everything. So this is what they told me. This is what I believe. I have no reason not to believe them.
Right. Well, you also sent me some photos of UFOs, of what seemed to be flying saucer craft. So are these craft that you actually witnessed? Were these craft, of the friendly extraterrestrials, and maybe were they carrying a Sasquatch? There's one above some kind of tower there. You can just see it. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. A friend of mine said, let's go for the days into the Cascade Mountains. And this is when I lived 50 miles outside in the mountains myself, there for 11 years. Now I live 400 miles away to Idaho. But at this time, she said, gee, it'd be nice to see something. So I telepathed, was driving, and we went for the day just to have fun and then stop to eat. And she wanted to get away and possibly see something. And while he was driving, a spaceship went in front of us. But just then there was trucks coming on the road, and she didn't see it. She was focused on that. I said, didn't you just see that? And she said, no. So I asked them again if they would show themselves when we stopped. I don't know, maybe a 7 miles away. It could have been 80 or 100 miles away. And this is the photograph that I took of them. Whether there was any Sasquatch in there or not in the ship, I don't know. But I just want to make a statement that, remember the Pascagoula? I'm tongue-tied on that. Mississippi, where 2 guys were abducted by these strange-looking ETs. I think it happened in 1971, 73, somewhere in there. I think it was 73. They later, when it went public, they never ever mentioned Sasquatch. But a researcher from Arkansas went down and interviewed them. And the guy said, when I was inside the ship, there was a Sasquatch sitting on this giant chair, just sitting there watching the whole thing. And the woman told me this because over 100 conferences over the years. And she told me this about 5 years ago when I spoke at the Arkansas UFO conference. And she came to me and said they were there. And so that's part of something he did not want to reveal at that time, because he didn't want to. He looked foolish enough, and these people were scared because of what happened, even though they weren't harmed in any way whatsoever. But yes, I've seen over 200 spaceships in my lifetime. Why? Because I spent most of my time in the wilderness. I've seen them land several times. And when I put on a conference, which was 4 conferences here, Sasquatch conferences, the last one was before the pandemic, was in 2019. And 4 nights in a row, when I came down from the mountains, I had the conference at this wilderness campus. A spaceship followed me all the way home, the 23 miles. I was by myself every night and drove down. and it followed me everywhere I went. And when I arrived here, I live in the wilderness, but I have to cross a gigantic field, a big meadow, and then back into the forest again. And as soon as I'm back in the forest, I'm at my house. And I looked up, and there it was hovering over the house. So this happened 4 nights in a row. That to give support, they said, to me, because I'm putting the conference and telling the truth, revealing that there's a psychic Sasquatch with a UFO, and that they are a people, and so on, and we must work to befriend them, not to chase them down. If you're open your heart, some researchers can't, too filled with fear, and so on.
I know in your books you describe many cases of individuals seeing UFOs land and Sasquatch getting in or out. So, yeah, I mean that's very impressive that many people have confirmed that the Sasquatch do work closely with these friendly extraterrestrials.
Yes, on one case in Oregon, the space landed in the yard and door opened. The woman said she didn't see any doors, but all of a sudden the door was open and an ET stepped out and started talking to her, but behind him inside the ship was a Sasquatch. Again, that connection. So people have reported that, and a lot of people are afraid to, because it sounds crazy, people, but it's a normal thing. They've also, both ETs and Sasquatch have been very kind and have healed me several times in my life. I have an old injury to my lower back. When I was in the service for 4 years, I injured it. And it's the doctors told me when I was in a wheelchair that I'd probably never walk again. Well, those doctors are dead, and I've been hiking all over the mountains and everything, and I'm still here. So, but they said I'd have to do experimental surgery on me in order to try to correct it, and I said no. And I telepathed to where I was in Oregon at that time, in the Oregon Cascades, in the foothills, at least 2, sometimes 3 nights a week. I would see spaceships come and land behind the mountain, and I would just take out my binoculars and just about filled up my binoculars. You could see. And so I telepathed to them. I said, I'm crippled up. I'm laying in bed. The pain is so bad that I'm getting 4 hours sleep a night. I cannot walk. My friends and neighbors are bringing food, washing for me, and I just lay in bed and unable to move. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain, I had a 10.5. It was horrible. So when I telepathed all day long one day, nothing happened. I telepath the next day all day long. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I just broke down and wept because nothing was happening, and the pain was so excruciating. I just felt lost, that I was just going to be a cripple for the rest of my life. And that night, as soon as I light off, a little after 10, and was laying in bed, of course, because I couldn't move on my back, 3 small foot ETs appeared, and they said, we're here to heal you. And I said, fine, come ahead. And all of a sudden they put me out, and I heard this strange language. It sounded like this to me, just a bunch of garble, but it woke me up. When I did, there was one behind me, one to my right and one to my left, and the one behind me had a cylindrical object in his hand. And I looked up and said, "Oh, it's you. I love you." That's all I said. I couldn't believe they were healing me. And I woke up 10 and a half hours later, completely and zero pain. Zero pain. I got up the edge of my bed and I didn't know what to do. I was so ecstatic and enthralled. I couldn't happen. It seemed like a dream, but here I was. So I started praying and thanking God over and over again. And then I got up and walked to the bathroom. But I realized I was taking short steps, not my normal step, my normal gait, because there was a pulling back there. And I said, well, at least no pain. So I stayed right there at home. And that very next night, they came again as soon as the light went out. And they said, we have to do one more healing on you and you'll be okay. They put me out. I said, fine, come ahead. And so they did it a second time. And when I woke up, and it's interesting because the doctors that I saw, two of them said, this is the worst case of a ruptured disc I've ever seen in my 30 years as a doctor. He says, never walk again unless you have surgery. So 2 weeks later, I went to visit my friend 35 miles away that had a 1,000-acre ranch. And I used to visit him. It's through the wilderness, very wild again. And so I decided I would do that. And it was on a Friday. And I realized that I didn't have enough money for gas. I had to quickly go into the bank. There were no ATMs. And this was in 1986. So the town, and when I looked at my watch, the bank's closed clock, and it was 7 minutes to 5. So I sprinted because I've been I don't anymore, but most of my life I was a jogger. I used to jog at least 3 times a week, 5, sometimes 8 miles a day. And so at any rate, I sprinted down the street towards the bank and got, as soon as I arrived at the corner, I had to stop. It was just across the street. But coming across on the other side was one of the doctors, and his eyes were as big as golf balls. And he walked up to me and started pointing to my legs, and his mouth kept moving, and he kept doing this to his head like that, and his mouth was going up and down, and nothing was coming out. He just kept pointing to my feet, and I said, have a nice day, doctor. And I jogged over to the bank. When I looked back, he was still standing there with his mouth open. So I, of course, I didn't tell him what had happened. So they're helpful. When my stepson put his hand on the stove, just as a joke, not realizing that it was super hot, his fingers, so that the flesh was hanging off of them, and he went screaming circles in the living room, screaming. I mean, it was frightening to see. And I quickly put some ice in a Ziploc bag and sat him down, and he was screaming like crazy. I was almost tearful trying to help him. And as soon as his hand went on the ice, I could see a relief in him. So we put antibiotic cream on, wrapped it, and sent him to bed. I telepathed to the Sasquatch that night. I said, please help heal him. And I thought, just take the pain away, because we're going to take him to the doctor the very next morning. He wasn't going to go to school. He was always on the floor and the sand and dirt. He could get infected, so he was going to stay home after the doctors. But in the morning, he came in without this, all the band, and he was hitting his fingers. I said, don't do that. What are you doing? And he said, but there's nothing there, Papa. There's nothing there. I looked over. There was nothing there. Not one single scar or anything. The Sasquatch healed overnight. Again, this is some of their power. This is some of their ability, which I'm so grateful for.
Now, you did describe an incident where a UFO crashed and several dead Sasquatch were were found around the craft, or were seen around the craft. So, yeah, what can you tell us about that incident? And is that an example of a friendly spacecraft being shot down by the government, by the military?
Well, yeah, I never saw a Sasquatch walking around a spaceship. So I think maybe you got confused on that, but other people have. It's rare, but other people have, and reported it. In some of it to me, some other people that got back to me, so I could interview them and clarify and substantiate and get more detail. Now, several have told me when they were in the service, I think there were two different people, now that I think of it, that were at crash, but they were afterwards and saying, don't ever bring this up. These people were afraid. They were really afraid. They wanted the information out, but they were threatened so much. One was a Marine, and it was in Ecuador that the crash there. So there's several crashes that took place. Now, in 2013, a Sasquatch said that the government, our government, is trying to kill them into extinction. And I thought, what? That doesn't sound right. And they said, yes, the bad ETs gave the government some technology to that they could cut off the ability of the Sasquatch so they could not dematerialize, or they could not go through a portal to another dimension to escape being shot. But there are these black ops, which don't have to answer to anybody, and they won't. But they shot in New Jersey in the Pine Barren forest, which people think New Jersey is just big cities. But if you get lost in the Pine Barrens, there's a chance they'll never find you. You just die there. It's that vast. So they went in there and they shot a male Sasquatch. And they murdered one of the Sasquatch people. And immediately the ETs came and took his mate or his wife and the two offspring, these two children, to safety because of these black ops. That's their job. So why would they want to do that? Because the Sasquatch said initially they were supposed to help us, and they started helping us years ago, apparently. And we said, but somehow the humans started to go against the Sasquatch people and eventually wanted to hunt them. And they said that's when they became legend, by disappearing into the deep wilderness and staying away from people. But they will, once again, anyone who's spiritually oriented, that are friendly, that I go my way to help people all the time, whether I know them or not. I help people. So it's who I am, how I was raised. I had wonderful parents that were always helping neighbors and friends and doing all kinds of things, especially if a house burnt, they would gather and call all their friends and relatives to get clothing and food and kettles and things that they needed because they lost everything in the fire. And my mom would bring it. We'd all contribute and so on. So that stayed me, and that's what I still do. And that's the kind of people that they're around, friendly, compassionate people. So they somehow drove anyway, the Sasquatch to the mountains, and what they've told me. And now they want to help us because the earth is dying. Our Mother Earth is dying. We're in bigger trouble than the scientists are saying, whether they know it or not. They're not saying it, but I know it and what they're telling me, and it's a mess. One of my degrees is in conservation from the University of New Hampshire, and I follow all the environmental issues and so on, and it's a disaster. People don't care. I live in the wilderness. I drive down this wilderness road. Both sides, I've stopped and picked up people that throw in beer cans, McDonald's, from all this stuff, sodas and everything. It's disgusting. We're not being taught that at school or in our home to not litter like that all over, because people don't care. They've been raised to be indifferent to the wilderness. The wilderness is there to do whatever we want with. Let's clear cut, let's mine, and so what if I dump this in the streams and destroy it? Wow, that's a dangerous thing. But the multimillionaires want to be billionaires, and the billionaires want to be trillionaires. The biggest industry, of course, is the oil industry, and it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. But somehow they just don't have enough money. So these people are evil. As far as the next biggest is the medical industry, the pharmaceutical people, they're multi-trillion dollars. And so all these things are not favorable to the humans here. And we need to be awake and aware to this. It's all contributing, destroying the planet. And the Sasquatch people and the ancient ones are the ultimate environmentalists that want to teach us, but we're too busy driving them away and trying to destroy them.
So true. Very important information. You sent a few more images or photos, and I just wanted to get you to comment on several of these. So there's that one there. So you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what that represented, that particular image?
Yes, this is, if you notice, it sort of has a monkey-like face, but again, they're human. I mean, again, any race that looks different, once we came over, when they came over from Europe, they treated them the same. They're doing here with the Sasquatch. This was in Texas again. This is in the garden that I told you about. So this is the best I could do. Kenneth Sigismund at the Medical College, Wisconsin, where I did a series of lectures years ago, he's a forensic scientist, did all my work evaluating, and he worked on this to get it as best he could. So for proof, as best I can do. And so this is one of them.
Okay, that's a fascinating image again. And there was another one that I was very intrigued by. This one. You want to tell us about what that is?
Yes, this is an ancient one from Europe. They have these in Germany and England. Yeah, it's of an ancient one. Through the ages, they've healed and helped people in villages and little tribes and stuff. And they again call them the wild man. They have all the different names for them, and it's they somehow whoever carved this had a positive experience with them and wanted to show it by putting it on some kind of a building, whether it was a church or whatever it was. I don't know. But there's a lot of this on the internet. And again, if you look at the face, it's a human face, right? Because these are ancient ones. The arms are not, you can say, in proportion to their body there. So why would they have this? This is from the 12th century, I think, AD. Well, because they've experienced it, because they're real. This is the real deal.
And the ancient ones, they are about the same height as Sasquatch. We're talking 8 feet, 10 feet. Would you say the
Some are
ancient ones
12
are
and
as
even
tall?
15 feet. Some are more than feet. It's rare that they're getting, but they are.
Okay.
They're of similar height. They're of height. Go ahead. The next one, please.
You want to show us another?
This is a mannequin that was a reproduction on the coast of Oregon. There's a little museum. This here is a guardian. You're jumping around here, but they said that the mannequin was an excellent representation, even though some of the ancient ones or Sasquatch that look similar to that, very similar. So they said it's excellent.
There was an image. Yeah, that one there. What is that? Is that like a photo or is that a drawing? Can you tell us about that particular image? Is that a photo of a Sasquatch?
A sketch taken from the Patterson film. It's a close-up of female Sasquatch. It's a done-over sketch by Dmitry Bayanov, a Russian researcher, in order to see what it really looks like up close, because it was difficult to see, but he painstakingly, little at a time, have sketched this, the Patterson film. Notice it has lips, and primatologists say only humans have lips, even though it looks like a chimpanzee moves its mouth. He's moving his mouth and so on without lips. So anyway, that's another feature that says that these beings are real. Just because they have hair, not fur, just they have hair, that they're not animals. We just because Afro-American people are black, doesn't say that they're different. They're still humans. The same with Native Americans. And you know that the Sasquatch were monitoring the stuff and all the stuff they did to Indians. No wonder they didn't want anything to do with us. We were killing them, doing everything we could. I mean, just to get their land. Then they said, oh, see, look what they did. They butchered all these people. Well, yeah, it's because they were butchered, trying to protect their property. So we've got to put where the shoes of these other people, in order to understand them and stop using our values on top of them and saying, oh, see, they don't look like us, so they must be animals or different or subhuman and all that. This is horrible. It's a disgusting thing. You wake up and start respecting everybody. I don't care what they look like.
So are you having contacts even today with the Sasquatch and friendly extraterrestrials? Well, what do they say about the future? Are they optimistic or are they pessimistic about the future?
They're very pessimistic. They said that we've destroyed so much of the planet, it saddens them. Really, they said we love this planet and people are destroying it. And that back, I'm going to say this, about 12, 13 years ago, I asked one, I said, is there going to be a World War III? And he said, World War III has already started. They just haven't dropped the bombs yet. That was his reaction. And so they said that this was interesting, that there is biosphere that built the ETs, that they're going to take some people to. And I kind of, about that, it was kind of a strain. And I go, well, that's what they say. 3 days later, on the news, said this huge object have floated in to our solar system, and they didn't know what it was, but it wasn't a kind of a satellite or or any kind of anything that could be natural. It's unnatural, and was that it that they're putting it in place? And eventually, it went behind the sun. You can't see it anymore. I followed through with this. So is that what they're talking about? I don't know. Again, they don't tell me everything, and they don't reveal it. But I found that very interesting. Is this what they're talking about in the Bible, of taking 144,000 people, those that are not aggressive, violent people, or who are very negative because they won't be around, they don't want to be around negative people, or people, as they said, that have made drugs, alcohol, sex, food their God. And those people are stuck, and that's what they told me. So I don't belong to any religion, but I believe in God, and I believe in prayer, and I pray for world peace all the time, every day. And I have a prayer list that I go through, especially for people. I still have some clients. I still have people that are coming to me. I never advertise. I'll be 80 years old in a couple of months, and I'm still in demand. And why? Well, I've never advertised. I thought I was going to retire at 60, but who cares? If people need me, I'm here, and that's my. I would like to read something.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead and read what you wanted to read.
Yeah. I think it's important that this was in my first book, and how I ended my book with a quote from a physicist named Lincoln Barnett. And in 1948, it's quite a while ago, he wrote a book called The Universe and Dr. Einstein. And in that book, I'm quoting him, I quote, "There seems to be no process in nature which could not be described in terms of ordinary experience, illustrated by a model, or predicted in Newton's amazing accurate laws of mechanics. But before the turn of the past century, certain deviations from these laws became apparent, and though these deviations were slight, they're of such a fundamental nature that the whole edifice of Newton's machine-like universe began to topple. The certainty that science can explain how things happen began to dim about 20 years ago. And right now, it is a question whether scientific man is in touch with reality at all, or can ever hope to be." End quote. So, as you know, quantum physics is a mind bender. So that's what he's talking about. When he said 20 years ago, he was talking about 1928. So it's still true today. They said, what's more important? He says, all the knowledge is in your heart, not in the head. To be so intellectual is we must shift into our heart space. And I found it very interesting. And in my other book, I find this very intriguing and very sagacious. A Zen monk once said, and I quote, "All life in nature has a spiritual dimension and is sacred. When we honor other creatures as we do ourselves, we all evolve another step." End quote. So there are universal laws and things that many of the Buddhists have discovered over the years. And so it seemed like that this is true through quantum physics. So I wanted to share that because I think it's extremely important.
So if people want to contact you, Kewaunee, where do they go?
They can go to Sasquatch people. It's all one word at hotmail.com. Sasquatch people at hotmail.com. It's a hot subject. And some people, if they want to, or they can go to sasquatchpeople.com. If they want to speak to me, some people struggle with this stuff, and I've counseled them and put it all in perspective for them and alleviated a lot of worry stuff. They can contact me, and I'm at 509-590-0415. Once again, 509-590-0415. I'd be happy to help them and to put anything in perspective, and that's my job. That's my job. Part of my mission here, and to ease and to about respect and not hunting and chasing and stalking and murdering these other beings just because they look different. And incidentally, some of them are will and so on, and there are people trying to say that they're killing people. It's not true. I'm going to just say real quick that the negative ETs have captured some Sasquatch, and they're never seen again. And the DNA is taken from, and they create some kind of a monstrous type thing. This sounds like science, but this is what they said. And so they're trying to blame the Sasquatch for harming or killing people. But this being looks similar, but it can kill a Sasquatch even. Sasquatch can flip your car with one arm, and it's super strong. And this being is stronger, and they made it so they can even kill a Sasquatch. So again, it sounds science fiction. These are the things that they shared with me and that need to be known. So don't be blaming the Sasquatch. There are negative ETs that have been abducting people, experimenting on them, and so on. And a lot of this has to do with reptilians and their henchmen, these little grays. Not all grays are evil, and not all reptilians are. Some of them don't agree. Reptilians do not agree with their tribe, their group, and they cross over. It's like, during wartime, you get people saying, hey, I don't believe what the Germans are doing, or I don't believe what such and such. So they start helping the good guys. And this is the same way going on here, apparently, on this planet.
Well, I want to thank you, Kewaunee. You've got a wealth of information, great insights and experiences into Sasquatch. We've learned a lot, and I hope to be able to talk to you in the future to get some updates and to hear more of your fabulous stories and the information that you've gathered on the Sasquatch. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. And they told me that they want to take me through their dimension sometime, possibly this fall, I don't know. And I'm to write my third book about my experiences in this other dimension. So this is a Sasquatch told me, and later an ET told me that. So it's when I'm ready, you're ready, apparently. But anyway, thank you for having me. God bless everyone. We're in trouble on Earth, and I hope some of my words have been helpful.
Well, thank you for that. And when you do have that portal experience, make sure you let me know, and we'll get you back on Exopolitics Today. So again, thank you, Kewaunee.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.